It sounds like the plot of a generic spy movie. A charismatic executive vanishes into thin air. He is linked to Russian intelligence, carries the formula for deadly nerve gas in his briefcase, and hires private militias in Libya. But this wasn't a movie. This was the chief operating officer of a DAX-listed company. This is the story of Wirecard. For years, it was Germany's tech miracle, a payment giant worth 24 billion euros, overtaking traditional banks like Commerzbank. It was the pride of a nation. But in June 2020, the world woke up to a shock. Company's auditors finally asked to see the bank balance, and the answer was, it's not there. 1.9 billion euros, over $2 billion were missing. They likely never existed in the first place. How did a fake company fool the German government, SoftBank, and the world's biggest auditors for a decade? And where is the man who pulled the strings? This is the anatomy of the Wirecard disaster. To understand why no one stopped this, you have to understand Germany's psychology. Germany is great at building cars, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, but terrible at the internet. They missed the dot-com boom. They had no Google, no Amazon. Then came Markus Braun, an Austrian tech evangelist who promised to bring Germany into the digital age. He took over a small payment processor called Wirecard. His story was simple. We process payments for the digital economy. While traditional banks were slow, Wirecard was fast. They grew exponentially. The stock price skyrocketed. It became a matter of national pride. The German regulators, the BaFin, fell in love with Wirecard. They viewed any criticism of the company not as valid analysis, but as an attack on Germany itself. This blind loyalty created a shield. Inside that shield, Wirecard could do whatever it wanted. And what they were doing was absolutely nothing. Here is the mechanism of the fraud. It's surprisingly simple. In the early days, Wirecard processed payments for industries other banks wouldn't touch. Online gambling and adult entertainment. High risk, high fees. But as they tried to look like a respectable bank, they claimed to have huge clients in Asia. They said, "We don't have our own license in Singapore or the Philippines, so we use partners." These were called third-party acquirers. Wirecard claimed that these partners processed billions of dollars in transactions and held the profits in escrow accounts. Markus Braun would present balance sheets showing massive profits from Asia. But the money wasn't in Wirecard's bank accounts. It was in these trust accounts overseas. Whenever auditors from EY, Ernst & Young, asked to see the money, Wirecard showed them screenshots or documents provided by the trustees. For over 10 years, nobody physically checked if the banks in Asia actually held the cash. They just stamped the papers. Approved. While CEO Markus Braun was the face of the company, the man spinning the web was his COO, Jan Marsalek. Marsalek was not your typical executive. He lived a double life. He threw 50,000 euro dinner parties in Munich. He boasted about having connections to intelligence agencies. One famous story tells of a dinner in London where Marsalek casually produced a secret dossier. It contained the chemical formula for Novichok, the world's deadliest nerve agent used by Russian assassins. He showed it off to traders just to impress them. Marsalek wasn't just processing payments. He was allegedly funding private militias in Libya. He was trying to buy border control software. He was playing a dangerous geopolitical game. And whenever journalists got close to the truth, Marsalek went to war. When the Financial Times reporter Jan McCrum started investigating Wirecard, Marsalek didn't just issue a denial. He hired private investigators. He ordered surveillance operations. Journalists were followed, their emails hacked. Wirecard even accused the journalists of market manipulation. And unbelievably, the German police investigated the journalists, not the fraudsters. But you can only fake cash flow for so long. By 2019, the pressure was too high. A special audit by KPMG was ordered. They wanted to verify the Asian billions. They flew to the Philippines to visit the two banks that supposedly held the 1.9 billion euros. What they found was a comedy sketch. The addresses for the partners led to a retired Siemens house and a bus tour operator. The banks confirmed, "We have no relationship with Wirecard. The documents are forgeries." The 1.9 billion euros? They were a fantasy. On June 18, 2020, the news broke. Wirecard admitted the money was missing. The stock crashed by 99% in days. Investors lost everything. Pension funds were wiped out. Markus Braun turned himself into the police. He claimed he was a victim too, but one man was missing. While the police were raiding the offices, Jan Marsalek was calm. He told colleagues he was going to the Philippines to find the missing money. He booked a flight to Manila. The immigration records showed he arrived there. But that was another lie. He had bribed immigration officers to falsify the records. In reality, Marsalek boarded a private jet to Belarus. From there, he was driven to Moscow. According to intelligence reports, he is currently living in Russia, likely under the protection of the FSB, the Russian Secret Service. He is one of the world's most wanted fugitives. Interpol has a red notice on him. But as long as he is useful to the Kremlin, he will likely never face justice. The Wirecard scandal is the biggest financial disgrace in German history. It exposed the incompetence of regulators and auditors who were asleep at the wheel. It proved that if you tell a lie big enough and wrap it in the flag of technological innovation, people will believe you. Markus Braun sits in a jail cell in Munich, facing years in prison. Jan Marsalek sits somewhere in Moscow, perhaps drinking vodka, knowing he pulled off the heist of the century. What do you think? Is Marsalek a mastermind spy or just a criminal who got lucky? If you enjoyed this breakdown of the Wirecard conspiracy, like this video and subscribe to Business Unmasked Global. We investigate the corrupt and the collapsed every week. See you in the next dossier.